All right, how's everybody doing today? My name is Adam Vesey. I'm going to be your instructor for this course. And in this course, we're going to study Microsoft Access 2013. And I'm really excited to do this course on Access. Access is, to me, one of the greatest Office programs that there is. It does require a little bit of training and know-how and planning before you start to develop your database solution. Access kind of sets itself apart from the rest of the Microsoft Office programs in that it's really difficult to just sit there and start building a database. You have to plan a little bit. There's a little bit of theory that you have to go into, but fear not. I will lead you down this path of darkness carrying a torch to light the way. Okay? Now, the first things we have to ask ourselves is, what is Access? Right? Well, in this first video, we're going to kind of answer this question at a very high level about what Access actually is. Okay? And here we repeat the question, what is Access? Access is what is known as an RDBMS. And what that means is it is a relational database management system. And while that sounds like a mouthful, and well, it is, what that means is that we use the components of Access to relate information. All right, we can have information in one table and relate it to information in another table, and we're going to get into this throughout this course. Again, this is just the 30,000 foot view, so to speak. All right, then really one cool thing about Access is it gives you everything in a nice, neat package. You have the ability to create reports, forms, automation within your database, all that type of stuff, which is really cool that Access gives you all of this. Now, what Access is not is it is not for enterprise use, meaning you're not going to run a Fortune 500 company off of an Access database. Okay, Access databases are great for small work groups of, I'm going to say 10 to 15 people mainly. According to Access documentation, you can have 255 people simultaneously connected to an Access database at any one time. That's their documentation. I'm sure it can be done. I don't know what performance would be like because I never tried it. But then again, I never tried to stick my hand in a blender either. So let's just not do it. Let's keep it small. If you want to do anything for enterprise use, I would suggest you use SQL Server for the back end, meaning where the data is stored and things of that nature. And you use a product like Visual Studio for the front end, so you can make the user interface. And then you connect the two using various programming techniques. All right. The one thing that's really neat about Access that's different than the other Office programs is that there's multiple parts to Access. Right? With Word, you do letters and documents and maybe a flyer or something like that. With Excel, you do spreadsheets. With PowerPoint, you do slideshows. But with Access, there's many moving parts to it. All right? The first part is a table. All right? Queries, forms, reports, macros, and finally, Visual Basic for applications. Now, what we're not going to do in this course is we are not going to go through this. All right, we're absolutely just not going to go through Visual Basic for applications. Why, you ask? It is too involved of a subject, and it does require some programming knowledge. So if you're not a programmer per se, you're really not going to get a lot out of it. Maybe after I do this Access course, depending on the reaction to it, I'll do a Visual Basic for applications course pertaining to Access. Right? But for now, we're just going to stick with these top 5 things: tables, queries, forms, reports, and macros. And I'm going to kind of go over each one of these parts real quick, or each one of these components to Access. All right, let me get my pointer back here. Here we go. First thing is tables. Tables store data. That's what they do. A table is the only thing in our database that stores data. Okay? The foundation of a good database is how well your tables are designed. Alright, if your tables aren't designed that well, the foundation isn't going to be that great. And, what happens to a house that's built on a bad foundation? Well, it's going to crumble. Right? That's just a fact of life. Queries. Queries let us ask our database questions. How many orders did this particular client have last year? I can ask that of my database. How many customers do I have in the 34420 zip code? I can ask questions of my database. It lets us perform actions with our data, such that we can update data within our tables. We can add data to tables. We can delete data from tables. And we can even make new tables with existing data in tables. So we can make tables from our tables. Pretty neat stuff. And again, we're going to get into queries like you wouldn't believe. Queries are a cornerstone of a database system. Alright, so that's kind of neat. We can ask our database questions. Forms. Forms allow us to visually represent our data. Everybody's used a form at one point, I'm going to assume, whether you filled out an order form online to order something, whether it was a contact form for a company. Even Google is actually a form. If you typed anything into Google, you've used a form. Alright, we can make forms to add data to tables. I can put in new customer information, click a button, and that information is added to our database. We can add visual controls to our forms, like I just said, a button. Everybody's used a button at one point in their life as far as computers go, right? Not the power button to turn it off, but a button, an OK button, a cancel button, retry, whatever. There's a myriad of different buttons. Well, actually, they're all the same button class, but they're different button objects. But that's another story for another time. Text boxes. Again, I'm going to go back to the Google example. If you've used Google before, you've typed something into a text box. And here's an example of a form. Right? You got the title, you got a drop-down list. That's not really a text box, but it's a drop-down list. Even these here are considered visual controls. They are called labels. I have my text box here. If the labels weren't here, how the heck are you going to know what to put in the text box? And we have a button that when I have this form all filled out, I'm going to click that button and it's going to do something. I don't know what because I didn't program it, but it's going to do something. Reports. Reports are the output of our database. Alright, this is the final output of our database. They can be printed or saved as PDF. So if I want to know the total sales from last year, that's going to be a report. Alright, we can format our data in our reports. We can maybe round numbers off or something like that to visually show it, but those numbers are not rounded off in our database to so many decimal places. And that would be one example. We can change the font type, the font color in our reports to visually represent certain things. We can even add charts that are made from our data in reports. Alright, there's just a really neat picture of a report, I guess. Finally, macros. Macros are kind of like a point-and-click programming interface. Alright, we can do certain things with macros to imitate a programming language. It's not really a programming language, but it's as close as non-programmers are going to get, I think. Alright, it allows us to build responses to user events. When a user clicks a button, that's an event. What happens when that button is clicked? What happens when I click the close button on a form and my data is not saved in it yet, is it going to ask me if I want to save it? It allows us to validate data that a user puts in the form. And allows us to give message boxes to our users, and everybody's seen a message box at one point if you've gotten this far in life. Right? Something like that, right? The value has changed. Do you want to update? Either yes or no. And depending on which button you click, certain programming code is executed. All right? So let's dive in and let's learn about Access, and let's have a lot of fun doing so. We're going to hit up tables next, then we're probably going to do about 3 or 4 good videos on tables and some database theory. We're going to work into that. I'm not going to set up a whole video series on theory because I think it's just a little too dry of a subject to talk about for a bunch of videos. So I'm going to work the theory into the learning about Access. Alright? So I hope to see you in the other videos. Let's have fun.